the spectrum. What do we mean by what does it mean to be autistic, and why is this day significant for autism awareness?
All right, so autism is a neurodevelopmental disorder. It's lifelong, but it starts from childhood. Um, and of course, neuro means something that's the brain and development. So something that's brain development, which also affects people's development, causing some level of delays, and you find impediments in social communication. Social communication, social interaction with other people, communicating with people. So I'll probably touch on certain symptoms or certain red flags that one would find
Okay.
at the early start, right? There's it also affects imagination, creativity. So let me get to the saying creativity because while that's a thing, it doesn't affect them from doesn't stop them from being creative artists and musicians and amazing engineers. But it might affect imagination and it will affect definitely certain odd behaviors. So let me put it in a text format. So it is characterized by deficit in social communication and in behavior and in social skills generally.
All right,
But
that's what. Okay, you're still
and
going
before I
to.
mention the red flags now, or I should wait later.
You were going to explain more about the social communication, but then I just wanted you to help us understand what it means and how you can identify autistic, symptoms in the very beginning. How can you identify that in a child?
All right. So autism is a spectrum, right? So it will not always look the same. However, this deficit, I mean, by the time they look at these different criteria, you find that the person fits into the criteria. So the common red flags earlier at the early stage. Now, that's red flags at early stage because some autistic individuals don't even show some of these red flags. However, they still have this deficit, and I will explain that. So most families that identify the autistic children on time would say that their child had loss of speech or delayed speech. So the child is either not talking at all or maybe babbling is not progressing. Babbling moves from just saying baba to actually trying to have a conversation with your babbles before you start to start words. So parents are like, this child is not actually trying to have a conversation. Then some actually start to talk, start saying daddy, mommy, but the next thing there's loss of speech, social skill deficits. You find that many of them quite isolated. So that's actually one of the early signs. For eye contact, child's not looking at the eyes of, and I mean, you're playing with a child, you expect child to look at you. You smile at a baby from 9 months or about from 4 months. You smile at the baby is supposed to smile back at you. So, and that's part of social communication. That child is not smiling back. So there's no back and forth relationship, as it were, of many children on spectrum. Then another so like I said, isolation. Some of them are quite hyperactive, so they will play, but they will not play with other people. And then another common thing is I find them with this, we call them stereotypic behaviors or ritualistic behaviors. You find them arranging things. Some of them arrange things, so they have toys. Maybe give them a block of what they say Legos. I mean, that's something we can all relate to. Instead of the child putting the Legos on top of each other, they arrange it in a long tray. They have toy cars, they arrange everything. Um, they arrange shoes. It's just that looking like they're in their own world, doing their own thing. As a parent, begin to notice this and start asking questions. And my child is not interacting like his peers. Um, that's when they start the process of getting diagnosis.
So, what are some of the disadvantages now at this point, if you've noticed it, and it would look like they can't fit in, and that creates a problem of segregating them in terms of even in the family and then before they get to school? Speak to us about that kind of experience and what it does to their development further.
All right. First, I must mention, like I mentioned, that autism is spectrum. So you find people who are autistic who are talking at the right time, or even if they experience delay, before their parents get to the point where they should be worried, they actually start to talk. Then but they still have social skill problems. Some of them have anxiety. Some of them struggle with making friends. So what does that do to their development further? Not so the maybe the impact, honestly, in terms of development, apart from just the autism itself causing the delay in development, might be because if the child is not talking, for example, parents don't know what to do, how to interact with the child. So you find them leaving the child to themselves. So the child then becomes more into himself, not um, they become more. I'm not a kind word, but the child is now like have more strong willed because and want to do things their own way because they found a way to live their life without stopping anybody else. Or they rather throw a tantrum to make requests for things because people don't understand them. Or because they don't understand them, they don't teach them skills like even communication skills, being able to speak for themselves and make requests. Whether the child has words or they don't have words, that child can communicate their needs. And because of that difference, sometimes you don't even wait. Sometimes they wait for the child to make any request. Just say, take. And the child does not want anything. The child is on its own. On its own.
All right, so I just want to add this one quickly. I just pulled up a statistics. I just want you to also relate to quickly for us, Adelola. This
Okay.
issue, it said that as much as, according to the World Health Organization, with little to no awareness, autism remains one of the most ignored but high-burdened health condition weighing on families and affecting about 1 in 100 children worldwide. So it speaks to what you just talked about. They're in a world of their own. They're not getting the kind of attention they should get.
Well, yes. To be honest, right? Maybe because I've been in this field for a long time, I I feel like the awareness has grown. So more people are getting the help that they should have have. Right. Sorry, 1 second.
All right, if you just joined in, I'm speaking with our guest this morning, Adelola George. She joins us this morning as the rest of the world gathers to celebrate and create awareness relating to the World Autism Day. And the theme for this year is moving from surviving to thriving. Adelola, we've got you back now.
All right, yes, I'm back.
So you were
So
saying,
So I say because I've been here for a long time, I found that more families are getting help, right? But yes, across the world, there are still families who are segregated, families who don't even know that what is wrong with their child yet. The early diagnosis is we're still backward in terms of early diagnosis, especially in um, let me say third world countries. But I think generally they will say that even in the US, for example, people of say colored families still get late diagnosis till now. So yes, many families across the world don't know what's wrong with their children, or they might even suspect because of social media and a lot of awareness being done online. But getting access to services, getting access to therapy and help can be a problem.
all right, I'll get back to you, but so would like to get your thoughts this morning relating to the conversation, how society can get to integrate people or children who are born autistic in with this condition is what it's all about, because it is the day set aside by the world to celebrate and create awareness as to get people to understand and show them all the love and help them actualize their potential. Get your thoughts across to 0809 444 0981 will be where we read all the messages. We're also streaming live on YouTube. You can go over to youtube.com/smooth 981 FM Lagos. Leave us a message and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Okay.
On the other side, when we get back, I understand some persons will talk about the myth around autism. Would like you to speak if with your years of experience to that after now.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know I was the only. Hello, hello, Mr. Marshall.
We're smooth 98.1 FM. Still, Lagos Talks 981. It's a special edition as we get back into the conversation. Today is the 2nd of April, World Autism Day it is, and with the theme being moving from surviving to thriving is what it is. And according to the World Health Organization the statistics, they're saying that 1 in 100 children worldwide have this condition. And so it is left for the rest of society and family to see what they can do to help them actualize their potentials. Because I've seen and read cases of autistic children being specially gifted in terms of being able to paint some of the paintings I've seen. Let's get back to Adelola, George.
Hello, back.
Yes. Okay, so let's return to this issue. Help us understand such a condition. Is it hereditary? And help us understand for some persons trying to make it look like there is something spiritual about it that the parents might be paying for that's responsible for the condition of the child being autistic.
Well, that's a fantastic question, right? Because many, I mean, us Africans, and I guess many cultures still have that same problem where we are quite superstitious. We link everything to spirituality. However, there is no spiritual cause for autism. While the cause is not known yet, there are certain um, certain things are considered. And I'll mention only one, and I'm glad I relate to your question. I'm glad I raised your question. So, autism, while it is not hereditary, there is a genetic composition to it. And so, when one family has a child with autism, there is a chance that they may have, and when they say they may have, it doesn't even mean that that's nuclear family, but maybe an extended family member would have autism as well. And one other thing that we found is that some children with autism have relatives who have shown symptoms of autism before. They have been missed. Like I said, autism is a spectrum. So some they talk, but they seem shy, or they seem a bit different, but nobody really knew why what was different about them when they were growing older. So I mean, so but when doctors or and researchers when they ask family questions, they find that some people actually have relatives that have shown symptoms before. However, the reason it cannot be confirmed or set to be hereditary and said, oh, definitely it's genetic, is that there are children who are autistic, because there are people in individuals who are autistic who know family member has been traced to have autism or historical autism before. And they are the only ones in that family. There is no cousin somewhere or aunt that shows autism symptoms. So it is not, but while there is no known cause, there are possible causes. There are possible causes. Sometimes there was a research that said sometimes they found maybe father's age played a part. At the top of my head, I can't remember many of these because the most common one is that genetic composition. But really, we don't focus so much on causes. We focus on, I mean, at this point, I mean, researchers are still looking at causes, but most professionals look at supporting families, supporting the children to thrive, to become independent, to learn skills that are deficit, and to grow and to be independent. Hello, can you hear me?
So I like us to get to the theme for this year. That's very, I find the theme very interesting because it seemed in a way like a metaphor for what people are going through and families when it talks about from surviving people with autism or children as it relates?
Right, yeah. So the theme this year is Wiring to Thrive in, yeah. And I totally agree that we need to move from, we've struggled over the years, struggled with our awareness, struggled with getting appropriate support. In Nigeria, for example, and in many countries, there's this struggle to get trained personnel. We still struggle to get trained people to work with children on the spectrum and with anybody with developmental disorders and disabilities anyway. And so we need to, so it's us actually a roadmap to say, okay, what's the next step? We've been doing awareness for all these years, but there are places that they still don't know what autism is. There are people who even know that the child is autistic, but they don't know what to do. They don't know where to go. Or in Nigeria, there are places where there are no professionals that work in those places. And those are and apart from that, how empowered are parents to work with that to help their children to thrive? And these are the things that to look at. How do we help these children? Parents, I mean, they say that most parents, when they get the diagnosis, even before they get the diagnosis, they're already so worried, they're already so worked up, and they don't know what to do. Then they get the diagnosis, maybe they feel a sense of relief that this thing has a name, but the relief is very short because there's a what next? Okay, now we know the name. Our child is still not talking. Our child is still isolated. He's rejected in school, for example. He's not, they might have certain odd behaviors that can be self-injurious. So, what that's as common, let me say, as common, but it is there. So, there's always that what next. And until parents are empowered to know what next to do, then the children themselves are limited to thrive, and the autism community in general. Another thing that we don't have so much of in Nigeria, but we started to have in other parts of the world, is situations like what they call self-advocates. Autistic people actually speaking for themselves. We have very few people who now speak for themselves and speak for the community at large. They can understand exactly what's going on in their brain, what's going on in their experience, and what works. Really, there's what works. Okay, all these things that we are doing, which one of them is most effective for you? So as we do this, that's when we start saying, okay, yes, we are moving from just awareness to actually raising a generation of autistic individuals who are independent as much as they can. We call it maximum independence because it's a spectrum. Some will be more independent than the others. Some would require some level of care for the rest of their lives. But at least to the best of their abilities, they are able to take care of themselves. They're able to work and earn some money. They are able to feed, and sometimes, even despite whatever limitations they can face, they can actually thrive to the point where they are inspiring and being a blessing to their world or to the world at large.
Because you talked about the spectrum aspect of it, I need us to go back into the spectrum of it and help us clarify this. Is there a difference between Down syndrome and autism?
There is a huge difference between Down syndrome and autism. The first difference is that Down syndrome shows on the face. If you say child with Down syndrome, you can tell that, well, autism on its own does not show on the face. I remember when I first started working with autism, I used to say that, in fact, and I still believe that, but I used to say it a lot then, that if there was any physical sign for autism, it would be cuteness, because they're always fine. I haven't yet met an autistic individual who is not handsome or pretty. Of course, they look like their parents anyway, but they will be the cutest one in the family. So even if they are not from a fine family, they will be the finest. But so Down syndrome, so they are pretty, they are fine, but it's just that Down syndrome, you can tell from their faces that something is different. And secondly, Down syndrome is caused by an extra chromosome, so the cause is known. In fact, Down syndrome can be detected from the womb because of that extra chromosome. So I hope there's no something now. What's that thing called? Interference.
We're listening. Just go ahead. Your audio is still very okay. We can hear you.
Oh, awesome. Okay, so And then Down syndrome has physical features about the back of the face. Their fingers are short, so it affects their eyes. So autism does not affect anything physically. While both of them can affect speech development, Down syndrome affects the size of the tongue. So you can hear it in their speech, maybe it can be slurry sometimes, but autism does not have that. The child is fine. There's no physical impairment, as it were. However, and then the percentage of individuals with Down syndrome that have intellectual disability is higher than the percentage for autism.
So this means I still want to explore the spectrum. So can people with outgrow this autism? Is it a possibility if they're given the right kind of treatment and facility? And something you say, it used to be autistic, but it seemed like he has outgrown or she has outgrown it.
No, so autistic, learning ability is a lifelong disorder. They don't outgrow it. You find an autistic adult in their 70s, in their 80s, they still have autism symptoms, but they can, therapy helps them, whatever difficulty or that the condition might cause, therapy can help. Family love and care has a role that it plays in helping them to learn skills that they did not naturally pick. So one of the challenges with autism is that they might not pick skills. We learn things by imitation. We see our parents talking, we copy them to talk. Someone is writing, we copy them to write. Many children with autism cannot struggle with imitation. So it's through that interaction, constant interaction, that they start to learn to imitate and then to begin to learn skills. We specifically have to teach them skills like grooming, even talking sometimes, reading, learning. So those, as they learn the skills, they become more independent. They begin. Let me say this: at the risk of sounding cliche, they begin to actually thrive. Yeah, and once that happens, so they will still have symptoms, but they would probably be able to live conveniently in the society. But however, here's the thing. And here's why there's a huge conversation. No matter what therapy does, no matter how successful a person with autism is, because of the symptoms that they still have, they need the society to become more friendly. For example, for sensory reasons, many people on the spectrum have what they call sensory processing disorder. So, which means that they might have challenges processing anything coming through our senses, like sound, things that we see, smell, taste, and all those things. And sometimes we just have unfriendly environments. But there are, as advocacy continues or started and has been continuing, there are environments that people are building to be safe. Maybe it's padded enough to take out external noise or unwanted noise. And of course, sometimes just being understanding to say, oh, this person has to cover their ears, it's fine, because there's noise that is coming. So with all of this, while the autism itself will not go, they will be able to live very conveniently as they grow older. We have when I started my career, before I started my career, I watched a movie by someone about a lady called Temple Grandin. And Temple Grandin is now, she was born 1947. So it means that she's 76, she'll be 77 this year. Oh. And she's a professor of animal science. She's doing really well. And it's because she got the help. But she's still autistic. She has not stopped being autistic even at 76, 77.
Which leads me to, I'm getting it. You're drawing me into your area of specialization now, and I believe the listener too would want to know, what do you do as a special need educator regarding people with this kind of condition? Take us through a typical day or a routine, what you do.
All right, so my job requires I work in mainstream. I work with children in mainstream, autistic children in mainstream schools. So they're in irregular classroom, as it were, with their peers. And my work entails, one, supporting them and their teacher to ensure that they are well included in the classroom. So it's not that they're just sitting, because some of the children I work with, the reason is because they would not naturally engage if they don't get that one-on-one support. So I support them and their teachers to ensure that they're engaged. Some, because of the communication disorder that comes with autism, many of them require that things are taught to them in simple language. So I help the teacher to find to you. I help the teacher say, okay, this is what you must, this is something to help the child understand in your class. And of course, sometimes it requires breaking down whatever is being taught. Sometimes in class I break down what is taught. Sometimes I can break it into small chunks. Like I said, this is the part that you should be learning today. What's our own focus for today? Maybe everybody. Now understand that autism is a spectrum. So there are children with the autistic children times different classrooms that I may not need to support at all. Their teacher, I might support their teacher to effectively include them if they have social skill challenges or they don't want to talk on their own, and then I get a chat say, oh, engage in calling, give me a task, give me a role or something. But generally, children I work with are those who require that extra help. Then we can have one-on-one sessions also to break down what is being taught. Also, because many of the children I work with are also still building communication, they're still building language. I work with them to ensure to expand their vocabulary, to begin to make requests, to make requests to interact better. I help them to interact in their classrooms. So many people don't want to, they might, some of them want to play with their friends, but they don't know how to. Some don't want to play with anybody. So first, the ones that want to play with others, but they don't know how to, I help them to create that social connection with their peers. And the ones that don't want to play, we help them gradually to start to feel comfortable with playing with others. So we're looking at all the areas: social skills, academic, sensory. Sensory would include, like I mentioned, sensory processing disorder, how to help them to cope in class. But it also includes writing, handwriting skills. Many of them don't like to write, so we work on building handwriting skills. So sensory, communication, cognitive, and social skills. Those are the four main skills that we look at as special educators when working with children. Generally, in particular, in particular, children with autism.
So I remember in your opening submission, you had talked about how when parents they come to confront the fact that, okay, a child has gotten this autism spectrum, and the next thing, what do we do? Where do we find help? And this leads me to availability of facilities to help parents with this kind of special needs children, get them to become useful and get skills. What can we say about the availability of such institutions, aside from knowing that you, Adelola, George, you're committed to this for life?
All right, so I live in Lagos, yeah. So I know that Lagos State has more organizations that focus on this, either as inclusive schools or even special schools. Sometimes there are autism centers that focus on autistic children. Some are just special needs centers. They look at autism and other related disorders. And there are many in Lagos. However, what I also recommend for people that are outside Lagos, and I know that there are so many back in Port Harcourt, for example, Abuja. I used to work in Abuja, so I know that they have quite a bit in Abuja. All these metropolitan cities are definitely fine. But in areas where they don't have, what I recommend is for people to get training. Like I mentioned, that personnel development was a thing. We have more people interested in the field now than we had 5 years ago, 10 years ago. I started working with autistic children in 2009. And at that time, there weren't so many, but now there are more people. And so there's more training. So I think what I would recommend right now, because I'm careful, I'm online, I don't want to mention names. Okay, maybe I could mention a few, but I'm limited also in my knowledge. But what I could do also is to work with families. They send me a message on Instagram, autism gist at autism gist. But they can check for Adelola Edema George on Instagram and send me a message. I can work with them to look at their environment or either what centers are available or what's inclusive schools. It's easier to find a center than a school. You can also look at what trainings can be done. So, for example, in Nigeria now, there are organizations that train people to become behavior analysts. or behavior technicians and provide supervision to ensure that the work is done appropriately. If a family, that's what I recommend. If the family is far away and there's no provision anywhere, if they can find who is willing to train and work with their child, they can provide, lift that person up, get that training done, and the work will be supervised. So it's not just, because right now we heavily recommend that people are accountable, right? So you don't just say, oh, I got this therapist, I got this therapist. The therapist, who is your therapist submitting to? Who is your, exactly the behavior therapist? Who is your behavior therapist? Is a behavior therapist a behavior analyst? If they are not, who are they reporting to? But what matter of therapy, just make sure that, this person knows their onions, they know what they're doing. And so if you're outside Lagos or outside the metropolitan cities I've mentioned, my biggest recommendation is, you know what, let's get somebody trained to work with your child and get somebody, an analyst or a consultant in that field. Let me use the word consultant, whether it's a speech pathologist who is a consultant, or a video analyst as a consultant, or an occupational therapist as a consultant to supervise the work that is being done. So so our children don't require therapy. Many of our children, and there are different types. So I mentioned the common three. There are others like music therapy, play therapy. They are by the side. They don't work independently. They have to go alongside these other three therapies. I train as a behavior I'm trained as a behavior analyst. So and in my experience, and the reason I chose to start training as a behavior analyst is because I realized that it's the most universal of all different kinds of therapies. But I won't speak down on any type right now because every therapy type has its role in supporting individuals with autism. So having said that, and these are the ways parents have started to teach skills. Also, as a parent, yes, you have found out your child.
All right, Adelola, just a moment, please. We'll get the point, but I understand there's a question for you. Someone sent in a message via WhatsApp. Message is already waiting. Yes, Benito's message. I see Tokwe from Yaba is also, there's a message. So let's just pay attention to their messages with your indulgence. First, we'll go over to Tokwe from Yaba. It says, saying thank you for the show, but then it goes on Down syndrome versus autism. Please, how come a child can be diagnosed with autism by 7 years or 8 years for the first time? Is it because the parents weren't observant? Adelola.
Most likely not. They might have been observant, they might have been asking questions, but nobody had answers. You find even people in cities who are asking questions and nobody has answers. So that's where the issue is. It's not necessarily that they're finding out late because they didn't get someone who could tell them what was wrong on time.
Now, Benito, there's also a message here from Benito, and he says, wants you to differentiate. I guess probably joined in late because I know I'd raised that question where I said it wants to differentiate between Down syndrome, Asperger disease, and autism. That's from Benito. So maybe you might add Asperger to it now because I already mentioned Down syndrome. Differentiate.
Oh, sorry. Yes, we already talked about this, about differences. Of course, the first thing is they don't look alike physically, and to be honest, they would differ in expression. So if you find a child but let me just quickly mention the symptoms of autism. 3 things are key. You find that there's some impediment in social communication, social interaction. How does child interact with other people, understanding social norms? Find challenges with communication skills. Sometimes it looks like delay in speech or loss of speech, but it can also look like the child taking things very literal. So you say things like, the cat is raining cat and dog, and the child is looking out for cat and dogs literally, right? So that can be where communication deficit can be. You find them having what they call sensory processing disorder. So the function they're coming to the senses can be too much or too little. So some of them will be tapping to find more sound. Some will cover their ears to get more. So because the sound is too much, some don't want to be touched. Some want too much touch. Some don't. Some are sensitive to smell. Those are the things that you find with autism, and these are not symptoms of Down syndrome at all.
Right. So, Steph, now the questions answered. Tokwe from Yaba and Benito. If you've got questions for our guest this morning, Adelola George, special education educator, you can also look for her on Instagram, Adelola George. Search for her, then you can get all the answers you want. But while we're on, if you got questions for her, let them come over now to our WhatsApp platform on 0809 444 0981. What is please is priggish? I don't get what talk about. Is there a phrase? Is there a phrase for that? Adelola George, priggish. I don't. That's what he's talk about is
Can you
asking.
spell the
But
word? That doesn't sound familiar there.
yes, Priggish.
Okay, so that's the word I'm not familiar with.
So,
What
well,
what's she
maybe if you can.
asking about? What is he or she asking about prickish?
Oh, now she just like say, well, pardon, it's a mistake. That's okay.
Oh yeah,
That's
so I'm
sorry.
seeing that there's a word like that online.
Yeah, but she said it's a mistake. But then let's move on to other questions now. It relates to issues such as stereotyping these children, and again, how do we get to break all of this to get them to integrate them socially? How do we break all of these barriers?
All right, the first thing is understanding, knowing that okay, there's autism and that it is not the end of life. And that the fact that a person is autistic does not mean that they cannot have friends and they cannot learn and they cannot understand. They don't even understand you. First, they understand you. That they cannot talk to them that they cannot hear. So that's the first step. They will now say, okay, how do we do it? So, for example, in a school, if you're going to, you can be inclusive, you can have children with autism. However, you need to provide that support. Either you are allowing external special educators or SCN or maybe external therapists to come in, or you have yours employed in house to support these children. But don't leave them without support, except, like I said, because autism is a spectrum, some of them will do, they will thrive despite their own limitations. They find a way to mask, they find a way to go about in their daily lives despite the autism. Also, our environments. Well, we haven't started that conversation here in Nigeria, but it's something that they're doing around the world, talking about friendly environments, sensory friendly environments, about light. For example, natural light is better than fluorescent bulbs. So that's definitely a thing. Sound. In Nigeria, I think our children are even getting used to many things. For example, generator sounds. I mean, things that other children do have to deal with. So, but I think that understanding and listening is the best because there's so much that can be done. And each child is peculiar. So parents can tell you how to effectively support their child. I watched a movie many years ago. My name is Khan. And the guy will tell you how to support him. He say, oh, don't touch me. Don't do this. I'm autistic. Don't touch me. And there are people that are trained to do that. I mean, that's what we talk about self-advocates. They'll tell you, no. And when I saw your message, the first thing that came to my mind was, I mean, I knew I wanted to touch on was self-advocacy. I work with kids. I teach them to talk. Say, I don't like it. I don't like this. Don't touch me. I don't want to be touched at this moment. And then they can say, oh, I'm okay with being hugged right now. So these are things that parents need to teach their child. And do you know what? Your child does not even have to talk before you teach them the skills. If your child, um, if your child can communicate through gestures, by the time you start teaching them to communicate through gestures, through pictures, they start to learn to speak for themselves and advocate for themselves. I want to eat right now. I don't want to eat right now. All those things are the ways that we empower our children so that they can actually become more independent, more social, and I mean, self-advocacy is the goal at the end of the day.
Or just we would come on the other side to conclude this conversation, but we've got a message waiting from Yemi who's listening. We'll take that on the other side. And so if you just joined in, we can also get your messages across on 0809 444 0981. Still a special focus today, empowering autistic individuals as it is the World Autism Day. Every year, April 2nd is always set aside to celebrate and see how we can create awareness and help them actualize their potentials. We're Smooth 98.1 FM. Stay tuned. We're smooth 98.1 FM. It's gone 12 minutes before we hit the 10 o'clock mark, and that will be time for us to quickly just we just put conclude this conversation. I still got Adelola George still with us, still helping us shed light into the gray areas relating to autism, the spectrum, and what society, family can do. Uh, Adelola, if you're there, we've got a message here. Let's throw this one in the mix for you. This one is from Yemi from Ojo, saying a question is it right for a child with autism symptoms to be in the same class with other students that are not autistic? Then she's speaking because she's a teacher and there is one in her class. And then it says he plays a lot, but in communication, no way. So over to you, Adelola.
Sorry, I missed out something you said, but I heard you say it plays a lot of communication is not communicating.
Okay, so I'll go over that again. This is from Yemi from Ojo. Is it right for a child with autism symptoms to be in the same class with other students that are not autistic? That's one. Then she goes on, I am a teacher and there is one in my class that's an autistic child. He plays a lot, but in communication, no way.
Okay, I guess I have mentioned what to do about that in my when I was talking about my role. My role as a specialist. These things are case-to-case basis. I work with autistic children in mainstream classrooms. Many of them are thriving, and some of them are children that may have been overlooked, whether because they weren't communicating. I worked with a child who they thought could not talk because he wasn't saying anything initially. It was until he started to get that one-on-one support that started to talk. So this is a case-to-case basis. But yeah, children with autism can thrive in mainstream schools. But
just you could sum up conclude your thoughts.
And so I was just going to say, that they can thrive in mainstream schools, but some of them will require support. Even so, if the child is not getting support, if the child doesn't know what to do, the child will need to have to come and learn what to do. I can't answer that. I'm careful to answer that problem and say, how would you teach the child? Because there are ways to teach that child. You can use pictures, you can break things down, but it's best to get that extra help.
It's good.
And support doesn't have to be all day one-on-one. It can be 2 hours in the day where you know that, okay, these are the subjects that are key subjects, and this is the time that this special ed person comes into my classroom to support this child.
Well, situations like this where teachers are willing to assist children with autism, but they may not have the skills and the requisite ability, but they want to. They might want to reach out to people like you so you know places you can direct them. Could you let them have your contact? Could you let's have the contact? So they're listening right now.
So first of all, I've said they can send me a DM and I will respond. Well, okay, let me drop my number here, 0703. I think you have my number. Okay, no, the producer has my number. So 0703 567 5373. 0703 again, 567 5373. So here's the thing. This is Autism Month. This is the month. If you need answers, this is the month to get your answers. There are many trainings going on. There are many conferences. I'm attending a conference this Thursday and Friday. Check out Patrick's Speech Online. You'll find the advert for it's on intellectual disability, but they're looking at autism as well. And they have sessions for teachers, and that's one. I know that there are others. I haven't really paid attention online to, but this month is filled with trainings. But there's another one on the 27th by Terra Connect. You can check Terra Connect online. So there are so many. Just like Terra Connect NG. Terra as in therapy, Connect NG. Once you can find, and there are many, there are trainings, and sometimes what these trainings that we have in April does is to lead you to a full training you can do. There are SEN trainings. There are trainings to get trained to work with very special needs, even as a classroom teacher. There are trainings that look at autism in particular.
All right. So you see, it pays to talk to you because they're listening, but just as an appeal, if you're listening and you got the numbers, Adelola, George has just let us have this morning, just an appeal. It's only when you've got issues relating to autism and special needs and you need some further direction, please, that's call that number and do not abuse the number. And that said, on a final note, as we go back to the theme for this year's World Autism Day celebration and awareness creation, I go back to the theme once again, which talks about moving from surviving to thriving. Which of this strategy would help us achieve better results more? Empathy or sympathy for these autistic children?
Empathy is definitely it, because sympathy is pity. Sympathy is saying, "Hey, yeah," but empathy is saying, "I want to understand you and I want to support you. I want to help you." Empathy is what would drive you to learn how to work with a child and not even generalize the things that you even learn about. Empathy is so let me tell you, my experience with autistic children, they know if you like them, they know if you are just beating them, they know, and they will respond to you based on it. Empathy is what will make them respond to you better and build the rapport that you need to be able to help them successfully.
We want to say thank you so much to our guest this morning, Adelola George, a special needs educator, helping us understand all of we need to know, at least within this time frame, on the theme this morning, empowering autistic individuals as the world marks the World Autism Day. Thank you once again. Do have yourself a great day, Adelola George.
Thank you very much. Have a lovely day.
All right, and that's a wrap on Lagos Talks 981 on Smooth 98.1 FM. My name is Omatseye Atsenuwa. Good morning.